Well, from the machine's perspective, we are now ready to print with ABS. The last step is going to be to head back to the computer to download a model to print and copy it over to the SD card, put the SD card back in the printer, and hit print. The part that we're going to print first, grab it off the other printer, is this spool roller. This thing has worked fantastically. So the spool holder that comes with the Monoprice unit is not bad by any means, but it can definitely catch along the edges, and we want to put as little stress on the extruder stepper motor as possible. So this guy, there's the two brackets from Thingiverse, and then I just modeled a quick cylinder because I didn't have the right size of either dowel or tubing to put between the bearings. I'll put a link to the remix of this that I did, and the bearings themselves are just skateboard bearings. I think they were $5 for a set of 8. I've got these two. I'm going to put 2 more on here. I'm going to send 2 to my dad, who has one of these printers as well. That leaves me 1 more set. So if you'd like the last set of these, the first one to request them in a comment, who's also a subscriber, I'll send them to you free so you can print this out and use it. So let's hop over to the computer and pop back over here. So this is a good first thing to print mechanically. Technically, we don't need to print it out of ABS, but it makes for a good test part. Printing it out of ABS will make it nice and strong. So the other thing that we're going to print is actually the shaft, because I don't have the appropriate dowels for this, and the printed one worked great. You will need to buy these skateboard bearings on Amazon, or if you have a local skate shop, you can probably go just ask for a couple of old bearings, because they don't have to be new or fancy. So you got a local skate shop, you might be able to get some freebies or get them for $1 or so. But $5 for 8 on Amazon is a pretty good price. So let's download the brackets here. Come on, there we go. And then let's download the bearing bar. There we go. So now we've got those guys. So let's come over to Cura. We've got the model loaded for the rod and for the 2 clips. So this is how they come into Cura. We'll want to rotate these down so that they rest on the bed. Do that. Now it's important for this clip, because it has these 2 little rests on the top of it, it's important for that one to be rotated so the little tabs are pointed up. I'm just going to rotate these guys around. There we go. And then we're going to do a reset positions so that hopefully, okay, does not look like it knows what to do with that rod right there. We're actually going to rotate the rod and put it in a downward position too. So the main reason for that is we actually want this thing to print so that it's in its strongest orientation. If we print it vertically, it'll print, but it'll also be very weak because of that orientation. Whereas on the side, it may not be super perfectly round, but we know that it'll be printed in a very strong configuration, and we can use a little bit of sandpaper to fix any deviations and kind of roundness, if you will. So the next thing I'm doing here, I'm just rearranging everything on the table so that it all fits, so I can do it in one print. You definitely don't have to do this, but it's not the worst idea. And I'm just getting everything I can away from the edges a bit. If possible, you don't want to push your luck all the way to the edges of your build table. So the next thing we're going to do is come in and select ABS. And for this, we actually want, for that low quality that we did previously with PLA. So we're just going to select normal quality here, which gives us 0.1 millimeter layers. That gives us 8 top and bottom layers, which is good. Gives us a wall thickness of 0.8, which is fine. We're going to up the infill density again to 85 because these are mechanical parts. And this is so small, it's not going to make that big a difference to the print time. And for print temperature, 250 is actually too hot. So I'm going to set this for my ABS to 235 degrees Celsius. And we're going to set our bed temperature to 85 degrees Celsius. We're going to set the flow actually back down to 100. I've checked with a pair of calipers. I've checked the filament. It is 1.73 to 1.75, so that's good. We're going to enable the cooling fan. However, we're going to block the output port from the bottom of it with a piece of tape, which will dramatically improve the quality of your ABS prints. So for the supports, we are going to enable supports. We're going to enable them only for touching the build plate. And so when we come into the layer mode, the reason we need that is for the rod, the underside of the rod. We need to verify that it's actually putting them in. So I'm just going to go over really quickly. So 0.1 millimeter height, that'll give us a good round for the rod and good detail for the clips. Cooling's enabled, support's enabled, touching the build plate, 235 print temperature, 85 bed temperature, 100% flow, and we'll hit save to file. And let's grab the SD card out of the printer and put it into our reader. New file, we'll save this as spool holder rollers. Save. There we go. So now it's saving that to our SD card. There we go. It's saved. So we can pull the SD card out and head back to the printer. All right, here we go. I'm gonna load the SD card in here. There we go. And then we're gonna come to the printer menu here. Select our spool bearing bracket. And it's gonna start by preheating the bed, of course. Start the clock now. I'll come back when it's preheated and let you know about how long it took. All right, so turns out it takes about 13.5 minutes to get the bed up to temperature. We're still just a degree or so shy, but we'll get up to 85. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And now because we got within, I think 2 degrees is when it starts heating up the hot end. So hot end is heating and we should be good to go very shortly here. There's 84, 83, 84. So I think we'll be able to get to 85, no problem. And any second now, we should start printing. Once it gets up to 235, there we go. So as I said early on in the video series, you don't want to leave your prints alone, especially when you're doing first prints like this. You know, really keeping an eye on it, especially these first few layers, to make sure that everything's level, the bed adhesion looks good, you're not getting anything that's pulling up immediately, there's no clogs, there's no stray filament that didn't get caught when it did its kind of ooze pull up. All those are little things that you can spend a few minutes at the beginning of a print and really make sure are going correctly. Well, I'm gonna let this keep going. I'll check back in when it's done and we'll see what our first ABS print looks like. All right, we're back. Print's finished, everything looks good. So let's take a look at it. Going to move the bed forward. Let's just see if this will pop off or how strongly it's held on here. It's not too bad. I'm able to pull it off with my fingers, but it's definitely stuck down. That's the good and bad of using the hairspray. Looks like I might actually need a utility knife just to pop this last tiny little bit off. Let's do that. There we go. All right, and so now we've got our holder for our material here. When you print with a full raft, you are going to have to do a little bit of cleanup on any of the edges that need a fit, tight fit, or high tolerance. But that just takes a few minutes with an X-Acto knife. And if it's a part that doesn't need super high tolerance, you really don't have to even bother with doing that. So I'm just taking off what I can by hand. Just makes it easier to clean up versus trying to take everything off with a utility knife or an X-Acto knife. But this part came out really pretty clean. There's just a couple of tiny little imperfections in the little clips at the top. And I'm sure I'll have to do a little bit of sanding on the rod here just to get it smooth on all four sides. But let's see if I can find my skate bearings. There we go. So I've got my skate bearings here. So let's see, without doing any cleanup, let's see if these guys fit at all. Just gonna pop this one in here. Yep, that one fits good. Trying this one. Yep, fits like a glove in both of them. And let's see if this might be a test, because if the rod's unfinished. Yeah, a little tight on both ends there. So I will need to do a little bit of sanding and clean up on this guy. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. I'm just gonna use the X-Acto knife just to shave off the little bit of support, remnants that were left behind on the bottom, and to shave off that little edge that the brim left, just to round this over a little bit. If you're gonna use an X-Acto knife or utility knife, always do it away from your body and your fingers. These things are super crazy sharp, and they will slice through you like butter really quickly. Okay, so we got that, and then I'm just gonna grab a piece of sandpaper. All right, so to do the finish sanding or kind of rough sanding on this, I use and really highly recommend these guys. So this is 3M, and it's ultra flexible sanding rolls. I'm actually not 100% sure where I found these. You can probably find them at Lowe's or Home Depot. I'll post a link though in the video here to where you can find them. And I have 100 grit, 150, and 220. These things are absolutely incredible for doing finish work, especially on 3D prints, but really on just about everything. If you're doing model making, those kinds of things. Because, well, two reasons. One, it's high quality 3M, so you're not getting cheap sandpaper. And two, the flexibility on these things makes them super amazing for finishing curved surfaces and getting into tiny nooks and crannies by hand. And when you're printing with, ABS or PLA, a little bit of sandpaper goes a really long way. So like this tiny strip will probably last me dozens of prints of finishing. So I'm just gonna give it a quick run over just to get all the surface marks off. And I think this is the only piece I'm even gonna attempt to finish, just because it's round and I'd like for it to kind of work smoothly. So I'm just gonna give it a bit of a pass around the ends here that go through these skate bearings until they fit snugly, but not super tight so that I can't get them apart. Especially for mechanical parts, the reality is you're probably gonna have to do some finish work on them. It's pretty rare to be able to take even a 3D printed part from a really high-end printer straight off the printer and just use it in an assembly. There we go. So that side's good. Let's check this one. Yep, that one needs a little work. See if that doesn't get us there. It's still a little bit tight. I'm using 150 at the moment. Probably should have started with 100, but for this, it doesn't really matter that much. That is a really common mistake that people make with sandpaper, is they use too high of a grit up front and then end up wearing out their sandpaper really quickly versus starting with a much rougher grit and progressing your way up. All right, I think that's gonna do us. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's looking nice. So now we just need to fit it to our spool holder here. I'm just gonna set that down for a second and pull this guy off. And let's see if we can get them to click in place. So this one should, and keep in mind I haven't cleaned this up, so I may end up needing to pull this back off and do some finishing on it. I'm gonna give it a try at least of trying to get this to snap on. Is it gonna go? Maybe not. I'll give it a once over with the X-Acto just to get the brim off the edges there on this interior portion. Okay, looks pretty good. Ah, there we go. That's much easier actually. Instead of snap fitting it over, just kind of pulling it into place this way. Looks like I need to do a little bit more cleanup on these little posts. This thing really does not want to go in. Tell you what, I'm just going to snap these little front tabs off, because they're what's preventing it from holding in place, and based on the other one I already printed, they're not really needed. Okay, there we go. So there's our front holder. Not exactly level. Would like for it to be a little bit better. And it's not a problem with the print, it's actually the angle is slightly off. Maybe I'll clean it up just a little bit more. It's not as bad. It's pretty close to the other one that I've printed. Again, cut away from yourself. It's hard to remember, surprisingly. I'm tempted all the time to take the shortcut and just do it quickly, but it's worth it not to. Okay, so we've got the front one on. I'm again just gonna shave down the insides of this one to get the brim off. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Pop him back in. And this one should snap fit over pretty easily. And it does. Put our bearing back in. Put our piece over the front. There. We need to reverse this back piece The reason I'm reversing the back piece is because that brim is actually helping to kind of act as a little bit of a clip on the back side of the bearing, but I actually need to be able to insert it this way. So I needed to flip it around so that I could actually insert it from the back side instead of from the front. Just gonna press fit that. And there we go. We've got a nice, simple holder and rolls pretty well, all things considered. Now we can pop that on. It's on there securely. And then we will pop our material back on here. There we go. And now we've got a nice smooth roller so that we don't have to worry about it binding on the extruder stepper motor, and we're good to go for our next print. So there we go. We've walked through setting up the printer, configuring it, updating the firmware, updating the PID values for the hot end and the heated bed, leveling, putting the glass on, using the hairspray, filament switching, and printing our first parts to improve the printer. From here on out, really, it's a matter of using it and having fun with it. Key things to keep in mind: never leave it alone. Don't hit print and walk away. You need to keep an eye on it. Don't leave the printer alone. If you're in a hurry to get something done, 3D printing is not the way to do it. Take that extra couple of minutes when you're setting up, when you're prepping, paying attention to the beginning of the print, because that little extra bit of attention will make such a huge difference down the line. Stay tuned for more tutorials and guidance on using the Monoprice Select Mini 3D printer. Thanks, bye.